Tonight on America's Dumbest Criminals, he's got a handful of dynamite and a short fuse, but you won't believe how he blows it. It's good that this crook is getting familiar with license plates, because he'll be making them soon. And doesn't this look like an accident just waiting to happen? You can't cut us off now, because things are just getting interesting for America's Dumbest Criminals.
Delta 1566, give me a call on your
Now, welcome your host for America's Dumbest Criminals, Daniel Butler and Debbie Allen.
Hey, big show tonight, huh?
Oh, you don't know the half of it.
What do you mean?
Oh,
What?
remember how you talked about getting a speeding ticket
Yeah.
and
yeah.
missing your court date?
Well, yeah, but it happened only because I was focused on creating quality television program.
Oh, please. Save that speech for when you accept your Emmy, okay?
Well, what? What are you getting at? What?
Nothing. Nothing.
Okay, sure. All right.
We have a very special show tonight with lots of surprises. That's all I'm talking about.
I'm all tingly in anticipation. I really
great.
am. Yeah.
Our first criminal got a big surprise as well when he tried to pull a fast one in a drugstore. Now, I love to find a bargain, but our first villain was looking for a steal.
Yeah, but this guy wasn't going for jewels or cars. He was going for pictures, trying to avoid paying for film developing.
What should have been a simple sales transaction blew up into something larger than life. In the next 5 seconds, a crime is going to be committed. Watch closely. Did you catch it? We'll give you a second chance to see what caught the security guard's eye. Here's a look from another angle. This student at the University of California, Santa Barbara takes a look at his pictures, then pockets them, oblivious that the camera caught it all. Then he makes his way out of the store where he's confronted by security. Now here's the mind-boggling part of this whole story. This was his second attempt to steal these very same pictures. He had just paid a $200 fine of restitution and picked up the film from the office when this video was shot. And he's busted yet again. Here's a financial rundown on what just transpired. The cost of film developing, $12.49. Cost of first civil demand for restitution, $200. Cost for round 2, $400. Plus, he was arrested for theft. So the difference between obeying the law and breaking the law? A whopping $587.51. I sure hope he wasn't an economics major.
And that didn't include attorney fees, you know.
Oh, isn't that pitiful?
Yep.
Well, now we head to Woodland Park, Colorado for a story that is pure dynamite.
You know how Wile E. Coyote lowers the plunger in an attempt to blow the Roadrunner to Kingdom Come? Well, this is nothing like that. But it does involve someone armed with dynamite.
Or to be more correct, partially armed. First, he uses sticks of TNT as a weapon to threaten bank tellers. Talk about sending interest rates through the roof. Well, then he realizes that his threat kit is incomplete.
Yeah, well, a little. His quest for wholeness brings us to something to remember me by.
Well, I was involved in an investigation involving an individual that robbed a supply store for dynamite in Cripple Creek. The next day, he uses this dynamite to rob a bank, not realizing that the dynamite wasn't really any good without the blasting cap.
Fill it out. Okay, that's enough.
And then that afternoon, he calls the store owner, and he tells the owner that he was the guy that robbed him the day before for the dynamite, and that he wanted to get some blasting caps from him. And the store owner said that he didn't have any in stock right now, but if he called back this afternoon, he would tell him if the shipment came in. Well, in the meantime, he calls the police, and with working with several agencies, we set up a location for him to meet with the suspect to buy the blasting cap. And that evening, he calls the owner back again and tells the owner he does want the blasting caps. So when he shows up at the pre-designated location, the only thing that's in the van is the SWAT team waiting for him. The only blast that this dummy got was jail time.
I was driving behind this group of guys and gals. The gals were in one car, the guys were in another car. The guys were obviously flirting with the girls. The girls were just kind of giggling, having fun. And the guys were so busy flirting with the girls, they didn't even see me. The girls saw me. They kind of were smiling and giggling a little bit because they knew that the cops were right next to them. And finally, one of the guys yells out, "We got some beer." About that time, one of the passengers in the guy's car turns his head and looks and sees me. He just kind of gets this shocked look on his face. The girls at that point, since they saw me, they just started laughing pretty hard at that point. And their light turned green, so they took off and they were gone, didn't see them again. The guys went ahead and continued on through the intersection, and I pull them over. I walk up to the car and ask them if they have some beer in the car, which they say, no, we were just having fun, flirting with the girls. We were gonna get some beer later if they'd go with us. I can see a 6-pack of 12-ounce bottles with open beers in it, pull the bottles of beer out of the car, end up arresting the driver for DUI and underage drinking, and then also arresting the passenger for underage drinking and possession of marijuana. They missed out on dates with the girls and instead got a date with the judge.
All right, as my childhood friend Joey Angelini once said, never crack wise to a priest.
And that goes double if the priest is also a police officer.
Triple if the officer is a nun.
Oh.
Wow. See if you don't think this man is one holy terror. Let's go back to Woodland Park for the story.
I have a friend that's a police chaplain. He was also a regular officer, and he was transporting a prisoner to jail. And the prisoner asked him, he says, "If I ran, would you shoot me?" And he looked at him and smiled, and he said, "Son, I can pray with you, I can pray for you, or I can pray over you." And of course, he didn't say anything after that.
And now, another of America's dumbest laws. In Natchez, Mississippi, it's illegal for elephants to drink beer.
Oh, yeah, the last thing the world needs is a passel of punchy pachyderm staggering around. I wonder if a drunk elephant sees pink people. Well, we'll think about that later. You've heard the old expression, so drunk he couldn't see straight? Well, our next story concerns a woman who recognized that she was too intoxicated to drive, but then she turns the wheel over to someone who was also at, shall we say, a disadvantage. It definitely ranks among America's dumbest excuses.
I had the opportunity to observe a car coming at me. He came over my lane, ran me off the road into a convenience store parking lot, turned around on him, came back up. He was going across 3 and 4 lanes of a 5-lane road, going from side to side. I had my blue light siren on, chased him for about 9 miles, and finally got him stopped, and he came out of the car, and I noticed he was leaning on the car. I thought it was for support. Come to find out, he was blind. I could see in his eyes, and it was pretty obvious. He just couldn't see anything at all. He got to the end of the car and fell. But there was a female passenger in the car also. And I asked her, well, why weren't you driving? She was intoxicated also. So it's one of those things that was kind of surprising.
Yeah, the moral of the story is designate a designated driver who can actually get you home in one piece. And on that sober note, over to you, Debbie.
Well, our next guy was offering the deal of a century. For a one-time fee, you could get unlimited cable, including those pricey pay-per-view events, without paying anything. The electronic device the egghead was selling was called a black box. It unscrambled all cable channels, and that made the cable company madder than a wet hen. When authorities pull the plug on his operation, notice that the crook's expressions are rather blank.
Well, they're not illegal. It's just an electronic device.
That's what the man said after he was busted for selling 2 black boxes to an undercover officer.
It's a serious felony. I mean, he could go to jail for quite some time for this.
These Tinker toys will give you free access to everything cable offers, even pricey pay-per-view events, without paying a nickel. As this cable company rolled out a major crackdown and began knocking on doors, they found all sorts of inventive electronics at work. All of it a criminal offense. Maybe instead of peddling illegal gizmos, this guy had better go back to piddling with legal electronic devices.
All right, pay attention. A quick overview of our next story. It involves a man, a big knife, and the attempt to hide the said knife in his pants. In this disturbing melodrama, the part of the criminal will be played by John Wayne Bobbitt. Ooh. Made you wince, didn't I? Settle down, easy. It's not quite as bad as it sounds, but it's real close.
This young man walks into a convenience store, walks up to a display of knives, and apparently he wanted one real bad, didn't have enough money to buy it. So he took the knife off the display and shoved it down the front of his pants. Just then he noticed that security was on to him, so he takes off running out the store. Well, pretty soon the knife creeps down inside of his pants and starts to cut the inside of his leg. And pretty soon he's now hobbling outside the store as gently as he can. He ended up in a restaurant bathroom next door, complaining to the employees that he was bleeding from the crotch area. And when we caught up with him, he told us the whole story. Obviously, he was a little embarrassed, and I don't think he'll be concealing anything in his pants in the next little while. We called this guy Blade Runner at the office. I'm sure he got the point.
Later, a driver isn't having an out-of-body experience when he goes toward the light. But now with the news is a man who does as much for reporting as Marv Albert did for lingerie. Here's Daniel with ADC headlines.
Okay. All right, now you've heard about robbers poking their fingers through a coat to make victims believe they were armed. Well, that's what this man in Modesto, California did when holding up a bank, except his hand was in plain view. Guessing that his finger wasn't loaded, the teller alerted police, who provided nice handcuffs for the man. He was also equipped with a small silencer that turned out to be a thimble. 2 men in San Diego were arrested when a search revealed that they were in possession of a stolen video camera, but apparently they'd been tampering with the evidence. Inadvertently, they had recorded themselves displaying their stolen goods and even congratulating each other for being thoughty enough to steal the video camera's operating manual, which apparently they hadn't read. So, dressed in raid shirts and holding their police radios, an assault force of narcotics officers took down a crack house in DeLand, Florida, netting 14 arrests. As the investigators were wrapping up, 2 true dopeheads approached the uniformed officers and inquired about making a buy. They were promptly arrested, and the stolen truck they were driving was seized. And that closes the file on ADC Headlines, news ripped from somewhere near the back of your local newspaper. Debbie?
She was a very, very stout woman with a very, very bad disposition, and she wore a very, very yellow dress. She also wore out the officers who were pursuing her. See for yourself.
She tried to hide in the bushes from police after a high-speed car chase that ended in a crash in this driveway. Police saw the woman hit a vehicle in this apartment complex parking lot.
She proceeded to drive forward and crash into other vehicles in the parking lot, and then she would put it back in reverse and crash into the fence and other vehicles, and she managed to push a vehicle out of the way of the parking lot enough to give herself room to exit the parking lot.
After the crash ended the chase, she tried unsuccessfully to flee on foot and hide.
Myself and all the responding officers noticed her running and trying to hide in the bushes in the rear of one of the residents on Country Club Drive. That's where we all brought her into custody.
She was charged with assault and numerous moving violations, but moving too fast on foot was not one of them.
Hey, all crimes are wrong, but some also seem geographically undesirable. I mean, the odds of getting caught seem to mushroom. Our next crook would have made a terrible bookie because he perpetrated his crime practically in the shadow of the police station. His scarfing of a license plate next to the home plate of law enforcement gives us yet another case of, I'm where? You're who?
I'm Lieutenant Karen Bodiford with the Leon County Sheriff's Office in Tallahassee, Florida. A couple of years ago, I was working a relatively slow shift, and I went out onto the front porch of the sheriff's office to get a breath of fresh air. And when I stepped out onto the porch, I saw a guy crouching behind my marked patrol car about 30 feet from the front door, and he was removing the tag from my car, the county tag. It took me just a second to realize what was going on. I hollered out at him to stop, and he proceeded to drop his screwdriver and walk away. There aren't that many criminals that are that dumb, but he went to jail for it.
Maybe this next guy's conversation went something like this. Hey, honey, I'll be back in a little while. I'm going to go pick up some things. And that's just what he did. First, he picked up plenty of booze, and then he picked up a red light with the front of his car. Here's our ADC reenactment. But remember, objects in your TV screen are smaller than they appear.
This is one of my favorite stories. It's about a drunk driver.
Early morning hours, driving alone, hit a traffic signal in a center divider.
He clipped the pole, knocked it off its base. A couple of miles later, was spotted by one of our officers. He was kind of easy to spot because he still had that signal pole with him. It was embedded in his car, laying over the hood of the car and into the roof of his Mazda RX-7. Well, after a brief pursuit, the officer got the drunk driver stopped. He walked up on the car and asked the obvious question, "What's with the pole and the traffic signal?" The drunk driver replied, "Well, it came with the car when I bought it." Well, the officer was given the green light to arrest the defendant for drunk driving, hit and run, and excessive sarcasm.
You know, sometimes it can be a cold, cruel world, and sometimes it's just plain cold.
That's what a juvenile offender discovered when he escaped from a detention center, then made a hasty U-turn.
Oh, yeah, he sure put the brr in breakout.
But the thoughtful kid that he was, he came back so we could bring you another chapter of We're Not Making This Up.
Yep.
I'm the manager of a juvenile detention facility, and about 2 years ago we were undergoing remodeling of our main building, so we housed the kids in a temporary facility which happened to be an old motel. One night is about the coldest night of the year we had, with the temperature probably about 4 degrees below zero. And in the middle of the night, the officer heard a crash, went running down to one of the rooms just in time to see a kid exit through the hole that they had made in the wall from pulling the air conditioner unit out. Saw his feet go through, ran back to the office to call 911. About that time, the doorbell rang, went to the door, and it was a kid ringing the doorbell wanting back in because he was freezing to death. He only had his socks on. When he rang the doorbell, he also picked up the newspaper that had been delivered, so he delivered us the newspaper too. Pretty smooth character. That's the first time I've ever seen or heard of any criminal that actually escaped from custody and rang the doorbell begging to get back in.
Well, it's time to thank you for joining us and express our gratitude to all the law enforcement officers who helped us tonight.
And all the officers they represent. Thanks for the great job you do for us every day.
There's more Dumb to come when we return next week, so make a point of joining us.
And if you can't wait till then, drop by our website.
The address is www.dumbcrimes.com.
Hey, Daniel, at the beginning of the show, we talked about, remember, you getting a speeding ticket and then failing to appear on your court day?
Yeah, it was a dumb mistake on my part. Sorry.
It's funny you should use that word dumb since it's in the title of our show.
But yeah, where are you going with this day?
Oh, no, that's not where I'm going. It's where you're going to be going. Allow me to introduce and welcome my special guests, Officers Ben Alexander and Shannon Moore with the Millersville Police Department. Yes, they're here tonight. He is booked for a very special appearance downtown.
Hey.
Oh, and look at this, Daniel.
No, wait.
She's about my height.
Oh.
Officer Moore. We also book him on an additional charge of too many short jokes.
I think my wife sent it in. No, really.
Tell him, too, that he has the right to remain silent. That'll be a welcome change of pace, right, everybody?
Hey, now.
As always. Oh, you look so cute. Bye, Daniel. When's visiting day? I'll be down there. We hope that we've all learned from others' mistakes.
Yeah, but if you haven't, we just might see you and me next week on America's Dumbest Criminal. Did you take Visa?
Wave goodbye, Daniel.
It was $103, right?
It's been nice working with you.
No, stop it.